Welcome to the ASL vocabulary portion of our class. The best thing to do would be to have your vocabulary list, that packet that I passed out. If you look at page 1, our first word is ASL. What I'm going to do is I'm going to voice the word, sign it, and I'm also going to number each of the vocabulary words on the page. So for instance, I will say for number 1, ASL, and then I will sign it. And I'll continue to do that throughout the lists, both lists on the page. When we move on to the next page, we will start over again with number 1. Otherwise the numbers are going to get ridiculously high and it's going to be very difficult to keep track. So I highly recommend that before starting this segment that you take your list and you number it 1 through however many words there are on the page, so that you will get used to seeing me sign the number and correlate it with the word. That way later on in the semester when we've covered numbers you'll be more familiar with numbers, maybe even have learned them by then, and then as we progress the voicing will drop. I will no longer voice the vocabulary word. I will simply refer to what page we're doing and then the number, and that's how I will introduce your vocabulary to you. So grab your list and we're going to start on page 1. So number 1 is ASL. Number 2, America. Number 3, ball. Depending on the size of the ball, this sign can change. If it's a baseball or a basketball or volleyball, or have you ever seen one of those huge balls that they use for like crab soccer? Big ball. So this sign is actually a classifier in that it depends on the size of the ball that we're describing. So ball. Number 4, book. Book. And with the book, you can close the book and you can open the book. Number 5, born. Born. This is the more formal sign of born. In language we use what's called registers. You have your formal registers, which would be church, graduation, the president's speech. You have your informal, which is more Sunday school, where there's a more of a discussion forum, and you have consultative, which is like a teacher to students, a professional that might be counseling a client, and then you have what's called conversational. Conversational is when you use slang and lingo in everyday conversation. We'll discuss the registers more in depth as we continue the course, but the reason I'm bringing this up now is that with the sign born, this is the formal register for this sign. If you were in a more informal setting or conversational or hospital setting, a medical setting, you would actually show the descriptive form of this sign, which this is the S hand shape is the classifier of the baby's head pushing through the birth canal and being born. Born. But this is more graphic, so this is reserved for conversational, informal, versus the born, which is the formal register. In class we're going to use this one because this is the one that is more polite. And if you're just, even in conversational, if you're talking to deaf, you want to be careful not to be too graphic, so I just prefer that we use this one, okay? Okay, moving on. Number 6 is break. Break has several definitions. So we have break like in class when we have a 10-minute break, you would have break, break, or break. This is actually the sign for suspend, like you're suspending time. Break, break, and break. Then you have the break where if you're breaking something, break, like a stick or a toy, you break it. Then you have a third definition like spring break, which is holiday or vacation. break. Break. Okay? Number 7, Canada. Canada. Number 8, car. Car. Car is an interesting vocabulary word because you have the sign car, but you also have what's called a finger-spelled loan sign. Finger-spelled loan signs are signs that you use finger spelling and it has a specific movement or shape to it. They're usually 3 to 5 letter words, and they're indicated with a pound sign in front of them in glossed text. So for car, what you'll see the deaf members of the community use, you see more this, the actual spelling of the word. And if you notice, I'm not, each letter is not being made completely. That's what makes it a loan sign. It almost looks lazy, but this is, what you're focusing on is the shape and the movement, how it comes from in to out. Car, car. So your eye needs to get used to seeing that movement so that in conversation when you see it, you're not focusing on the C-A-R, but you're focusing on the movement and your brain says, oh, that's car. So we have car, like you're driving. This is also driving. Then we have car. And then we have a third sign, which is a classifier, and we'll talk more about classifiers later in class. But the classifier can stand for an object. For instance, the 3-finger classifier, which is what this is, CL3, stands for modes of transportation. So this can be a car, this can be a submarine, it can be a limo, it can be any type of transportation. It can't be a boat or a train. They have their own, or a trailer. They have their own classifiers. But this can be used for a bike, just anything that would be a type of transportation that you would use. When you use a classifier, the important thing to remember is you can't just start throwing in classifiers until you've identified it. So even though we are using the classifier for car, we still have to identify it by spelling car. So here's our classifier, car. Now we can refer to this. We can show the car going up and down hills. We can show it turning. We can show it pulling over. We can show it driving and stopping. We can show 2 cars. We can show one behind the one car and then passes the other car. We can show 2 cars passing this way. We can show a car accident where you get rear-ended or to the side or front. So that's what's really interesting about classifiers, is you can do a lot with them. So again, we have car, car, and car. Okay? Number 8, chair. Chair. Chair is close to another sign, sit, which is a verb, if you tell someone to sit. And the difference between the sit and the chair is that one is repeated and one is not. In subject-verb pairs, which is what this is an example of, the subject, which would be chair, has a repeated movement, and the verb is once only, sit or sit down, chair. Okay. Number 9, class. Class. Number 10, college. College. It's a higher form of education. College. If you change the hand shape to a U, you have university. University.